Hey everybody, coming to you today from down in the Little's kindergarten, pre-K, first grade classroom because it is the first day of spring, so happy first day of spring. You'll notice behind me are our delightful little growing stations that Lori and the kids have been setting up. If it looks purple, it's because there's red and blue lights for different wavelengths to grow the plants healthy. You probably can't tell, but over my shoulder you'll see some buds growing. I'll take a decent picture so you can see it. But with all of the thoughts of spring and gardens, I thought this was an appropriate setting to just introduce you to the concept that things keep blooming in spite of everything else that's going around. So you probably remember that there are two big stories of gardens in Scripture. Of course, the original is the garden found in Genesis. Sometimes we call it Eden, all those kind of things. We sing hymns about it and such. But the garden is this immense creative act that calls God's creation into something bigger, not in a way of domination, but one where we are called to be caretakers, ones where we're called to be the ones who tend God's garden. And then on the flip side, all the way at the end of the Gospels, you hear about the Garden of Gethsemane, the spot where Jesus comes to pray, to be alone, to find renewal before he moves into the Holy Week story, where we know it ends in both crucifixion and death, but then in resurrection as well. We live between these gardens, from the creation and the resurrection. And I think at this point in time, as this pandemic continues to grow and people become more and more scared and there is more and more hoarding of toilet paper, of everything that you can think of, bread. Turns out you can't even buy yeast at the store right now to make your own bread. We have to remember that we are people of this garden, that we were put here to tend, not to dominate, to care for God's creation, not destroy it. So do an exercise for me. Think of the last time you were out someplace in nature where it took your breath away, where you just had to pause and just reflect on the amazing, the breathtaking, the wonder of creation. You have that in your head? Now I want you to think of some other place where you found deep meaning outdoors. Someplace where when you're in that spot, you know that there is a deepness and tenderness to God's embrace. There are a lot of places that we like to hike as a family. You've seen some of the pictures. I think I've told you about a couple of them. But Lori and I found hiking in California a few years back, pre-Hannah, this place called the Pinnacles. It's a U.S. national monument. This immense just joy and beauty in the starkness of the desert. I think I've told you a little bit about it, but we did a very long loop that was unadvised. And when we finished the loop, we understood why, because we had both run out of water, although Lori was much smarter about how much she brought, and I was not. But we got to the very top of the Pinnacles, on top of these old lava formations, and you could look and see miles and miles. And it was an instant reminder of how small and insignificant you could feel. And yet, at that same moment, sitting up on top of the world, looking out at everything surrounding us, you felt this pressure, this just enclosing and folding that you mattered. I hope you can remember that in the midst of this pandemic, of this crisis where fear and anxiety seem to be the most important feeling of the day, how important it is that we live between the gardens. The one that calls us to tend all things, and the one that ends all things so that they may start anew. I hope when you come back to church and we can spend some time in person together, that you'll see how big these little seedlings have grown, how much all of this has changed, so that together we might plant things and take care of things, that we might see the garden grow right outside our own doors at church. I want to close today with a psalm for you. This is from Psalm 16. Protect me, O God, for in you I take refuge. I say to the Lord, you are my Lord. I have no good apart from you. As for the holy ones in the land, they are the noble, in whom is all my delight. The Lord is my chosen portion and my cup. You hold my lot. The boundary lines have fallen for me in pleasant places. I have a goodly heritage. Bless the Lord who gives me counsel in the night. My heart also instructs me. I keep the Lord always before me because he is at my right hand. I shall not be moved. Therefore my heart is glad and my soul rejoices. My body also rests secure. For you do not give me up to Sheol, or let your faithful one see the pit. You show me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. In your right hand are the pleasures forevermore. May you find yourself tending God's good garden in your home, wherever it is that you're riding this thing out. May you tend that garden so that in everything that we have and do together, it grows with that same love that God has created each one of us with. Until tomorrow, friends. See ya.